So you did a Gottlieb today, and what did Doug Gottlieb, your boy and mine, what did he ask you?
We talked about Kirk Cousins because there was talk this offseason that they tried to unload him. The 49ers weren't even interested. No one was really that interested. He makes a ton of money. They're in the rare spot of like already knowing they were going to suck before they actually sucked, and they didn't want to keep Kirk Cousins despite him putting up really good numbers, which I would say is pretty unprecedented. Like, it doesn't usually happen. You just keep rolling with that guy till it just kind of ends.
Right.
Even watching him against the Chargers, like, he's still a solid player. Like, he's the least of their worries.
He's like 9 touchdowns, 2 picks.
You don't move on from that until you have a solution. You don't just be like, we'll let him walk or trade him and then just draft some guy. That's not the way it works usually.
But no, it doesn't work usually, except it'll be the second time in his career that it's happened.
Yes. So the precedents happened with him, but you would say the last time it happened, they were wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
He won that argument. One thing he asked was, there's going to be like, will they trade Kirk Cousins if they're 1-5? We already know they want to move on from the guy. Would the 49ers trade for him? They have, I think they lead the league currently in cap space. They have 42 million. So, and my answer was simply absolutely no chance. Zero. I think Kyle Shanahan has the Bill Belichick quality that he's just very unemotional about the players. Besides like the really sweet ones, like Bill loves Slater, the UCLA special teamer. Like, that's probably his favorite player ever. Even Tom, he loved until like he got to 42 years old. Edelman, like, there are specific players. But Kyle is not. Look at Josh McDaniels, a good example. Like, did you really have to sign Jimmy Garoppolo? Was that really your best option of all your options, just because you knew him and he kind of knew some of your language? Because that's, in the NFL, not the ideal way to do business, especially when you factor in like how much money you have to give him. Like D'Amico, Jimmy Ward, makes a lot of sense, right? You sign Aaron Rodgers, bring one of his buddies with him. I totally get it, right? I get some of that, but I also like being unemotional with that, and I think Kyle Shanahan like fucking legit likes Purdy a lot. Did you hear him after the game on Thursday night saying, after I watched the tape, I actually thought he was better, seeing all the blitzes, how he handled it?
Yep.
And I don't think he is doing like a lot of the coach speak bullshit. I think he's being very serious when he talks about it like that.
I don't think I agree with you. He doesn't think Brock needs it. He's not giving Brock fake confidence because Brock doesn't need it. You know, I mean, think about when the Niners practiced with the Raiders this year. I remember one of the big topics. People asked Jimmy about it. People definitely asked Kyle about it. What was your relationship? And if you talk to the people who covered the team or people around the team, everyone's answer is like, yeah, it was kind of weird, Jimmy and Kyle. And that's something that happens over time. He and Brock have not been together that long. But I think it's probably normal for Brock. And I'm not saying it was Jimmy's fault or Kyle's fault. Probably both of them. But I think it's probably a little refreshing for Kyle. And it's, I think, probably pretty normal for Brock to be coached hard and to be able to accept hard coaching or whatever it is Kyle does. And I think from Kyle's perspective, I think Brock probably, and tell me if you think this is fair, I think Brock sees it faster and clearer than Garoppolo does.
I think Jimmy's gotten worse.
Well, yeah, I think and that happens.
I think his arm looks not quite as strong.
I agree with you. But it happens, right? Guys get kind of scarred by their experiences. If you talk to quarterbacks, they say that can happen. And maybe Brock's in a good situation to start, and Jimmy had been through a lot. But my point is that Brock gets
I think Carr falls under that. He's not quite as confident as in his younger self in the pocket.
Yep, I agree with you. I was looking at it this morning. Brock is 7th in the NFL in time to throw, 2.46 seconds, which is actually faster than he was last year. Last year, he was 2.84 seconds to throw. This year,
you're talking about the time you have until someone's going to touch you?
I'm talking about the time it actually, on average, takes you to throw the football. How quickly do you get rid of the ball?
Who's like one?
I'll pull it up here and tell you in a second.
Was it really good players?
Tua gets it out the fastest.
Working well.
Burrow is 2. Dalton is 3. Mac Jones is 4. Dak is 5. Lawrence is 6. Purdy is 7. Minshew is 8. A lot of, there can be a lot of things that contribute to this, like just check downs, but Brock actually is like 8 yards per attempt. So Brock's, if you go look at even the air yards, Brock's not just checking it down. But my point in saying all that is I think Brock is less frustrating for Kyle than Jimmy is. I think he's less frustrating for him. And so I think it's easier for Kyle. Like, I think what Kyle says gets through every time in a way that is good for both of them.
Well, why would Kyle's relationship with Jimmy have been weird? You're an up and down player. Like, who are most of Coach's favorite players? The good ones. I mean, what? Kyle likes Julio and Matt Ryan. He likes Fred Warner and Trent Williams. Frustrating players, like, who's Andy's favorite players? It's like Donovan McNabb, Brian Dawkins, Mahomes, and Kelsey. I mean, what the fuck are we talking about? Like, when Jimmy said that, it was like, Jimmy, play better. Like, what he's not going to, like, jerk you off every day when you're throwing picks and struggling to win. And he goes, I don't even think he did that much. So I think that's always been.
How about reply to a text message?
Yeah, and then part of stuff like that. Like, you're not easy to deal with in the sense of, I bet Purdy is just, now, he's also at the point in his career where when anyone with the 49ers says jump, Purdy says, I'll jump higher than you'll ever seen before in your life. And that changes sometimes as you got older. Hell, there were stories about Tom Brady by the end. It was like he'd get frustrated with stuff. And I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying every human being, once you start getting paid a lot of money and you know you're the starting quarterback, the one thing Jimmy did have some leverage. Like, it was pretty clear that ain't no one around here better than me. And then once you drafted the guy, I know I'm fucking better than this guy too.
Right.
So it's like, I don't think Jimmy by any means like a bad guy, but I think that we're all human beings. And in his mind, he's like laying on the line. I got Kyle in my ass. And I know I'm the best version. So it's just, I would say there's just some natural football tension there, which probably happens a lot with that level of player, this good a team, and the play caller. There's usually not that much tension with the high-end quarterbacks, right? Because they know they got leverage, but you need everybody, and everyone's kind of on the same page. Jimmy and him just were never truly felt like equals. There just was never an equal. It was always Kyle here, Jimmy here. That never changed. And right now it's clear, like, Kyle's here, Purdy's here, but Purdy knows he's here. Now, when he ever gets there, that would be the thing with Cousins. Like, if Cousins came in fairness to Cousins, he'd be like, bro, I've made $250 million since you left my ass. Check how many touchdowns I've thrown. Like, I got some ideas too.
Yeah,
wasn't that the thing with like Rodgers and McCarthy? You start going like, Mike, I know as much as you, and I think I'm better than you.
And Rodgers at the beginning with LaFleur too, right? Who are you? Where did you come from? What have you done?
Yeah, you want me to go under center and turn my back to the defense when I've won MVPs and dominated this league from shotgun? Because that was a Matt Ryan thing, right? But Matt didn't have as much juice as Aaron. It was LaFleur was in a much more difficult spot than Kyle was with Matt, right?
Yep.
LaFleur was in. I actually pretty impressed with LaFleur.
I'm a LaFleur believer, John.
There was a moment in the game where he just was like, after they scored to make it a one-score game, he just goes over there, gets on a knee with Jordan Love. I'm like, I think this guy listened to a lot of the stuff McVay and Kyle were doing.
I think it is. I think he's in the group. Like, he's not just a guy on the tree. Like, his
downfall might be I don't know, like his defensive coordinator. He hasn't had like his Vic Fangio, his Wade Phillips, his D'Amico's. That could be the downfall. Because I think clearly, I mean, they're missing star. I mean, they got a chance to be like a fringe playoff team for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Say this with Jordan Love. You just watch a half of football, especially the second half when he started playing well. He shows way more than Trey ever did, than Fields does, than Zach Wilson does. Like, there's just more I don't know if he's going to be a 10-year starter, but he's got more to work with.
It just feels natural for him. And part of it is fluid. If he had played right away out of college, maybe it wouldn't have. But it feels pretty. He feels like a guy pretty in control, pretty comfortable. Yep.
He actually got a much more like 1991 landing. Like, that's how a lot of players started their career. They got drafted.
Yeah.
They sat for a couple years. They got a moment here if there was a rolled ankle. But for the most part, they got their opportunity to potentially start if they were liked in the building year 3. That's what made Purdy, I think, Kyle so impressed. Flung into the action immediately on a team that had like Super Bowl aspirations and answered the bell. So the credit you earn in that situation, like, think about last year, all the credit, like Justin Fields leads the league in rushing. They drafted first overall. They lost every fucking game that he was running around. They lost. You know?
Well, I don't want to rewrite
fault,
history, but like, even when Jimmy earned his contract after being traded, it was the games themselves were meaningless, right? I was for, you and I were both all for, pay him and move forward. Yeah, you got to do it. But it was a very different tightrope he walked than the one Brock Purdy just did last year.
Did feel like he was a little more of a gunslinger and had
I
a
know.
powerful arm that
Feels
stretch.
like
Was like,
Kyle-
I'd pay this guy too.
Yeah, I know. It was like Kyle beat him down. Brock feels like he's going the other way. Like Brock is getting more confident, I think, as time goes on, and he's better able to handle some of the struggles. So,
Well, it shows you when you have
things that don't work.
When you have a major injury, I think sometimes we just breeze by it with quarterbacks. Like, he'll be fine. Some guys like Carr, never quite been the same post the ankle injury. He just hasn't. Jimmy was solid, but I thought he looked a lot better physically pre-ACL. And maybe there's an element of getting a little gun shy. I don't blame. How would you ever want to rehab again? That's why you have to respect, like Tom Brady has knee ripped, Peyton Manning's back neck goes, and they came back and just dominated.